Everybody, I'm Stacy with Stacy's Organizing and Decorating for Life. I am here to help you organize your thoughts and decorate your perspectives. I'm also my own camera person. That's why you see me going, seeing if the minutes are running. Today our topic is going to be about the different thoughts and perspectives on relationships. And basically today we're talking about the family relationships, the parents and the children, parents, brothers and sisters, and how those, different thoughts and perspectives on those and revamping those relationships. And so we're going to talk about the changes. We're going to talk about the feelings, the energy, the frequency. We're going to talk about feeding fears and then or desires, and really it's about getting conscious in our relationships. So today we're going to talk about grief and estrangement, because there's 500 different types of grief underneath that. And with the grief, we're going to talk about pre-birth agreements. With estrangement, we're going to talk about intergenerational trauma. And I'm going to give you 2 tips today at the end of the video that give you thoughts and perspectives about why these things happen, whether it's, estrangement, people leaving on their own will, or it's grief and people maybe leaving on their own will or not leaving on their own will. So if you'd like that's our topic today, please hit the like and subscribe button below. There's so many people watching these videos. That's why I kind of go here and there, because I don't know exactly who's going to be watching. And so I'm trying to reach as many people as I can with the topic. So first let's touch on the grief, the pre-birth agreements. I have had grief in my life. I lost my 18-year-old son. If you haven't watched the videos prior, I have a series of videos about grief if you're new to this channel. And by the way, if you are new to this channel, welcome. And if you've stuck with me and been dedicated to watching these videos or listening to these videos in whatever capacity, thank you all very much. I do love and appreciate you. So let's go back to grief and the pre-birth agreement, says me being mindful of your time, okay? So I was in a play myself in a Unity church in Fort Worth that I went to when I was there, and before I had any inkling of losing any children or anything like this, or and some of you may have lost a parent, this may help you in that area. And the lessons that we get to learn, and a pre-birth agreement is really about the lessons we get to learn. Now this may kind of teeter on reincarnation, and if that's not your thing, then you may want to turn this off. I myself used to wonder about reincarnation, and I thought, how can there be that many souls here, and how can this all happen? So it makes sense to me that we relearn our lessons through this lifetime. So pre-birth agreements, when I lost my son, the thing that helped me get through was talking to my life coach, who I had for many, many years, and have learned all that I've learned about, coaching from her, for the most part, that hands-on experience with my own life experiences and her telling me and helping me through these different areas of my life. So the pre-birth agreement, she suggested that my son and I had signed up for this life together, and he had trusted me to be able to handle these different things that we would go through, because as I've said before, a lot of times we want to blame ourselves and give ourselves so much power and control, and maybe things are our fault and maybe they're not, and maybe they're a little of both, and it really doesn't have any value for us to blame ourselves or anyone else. And so we're going to talk about forgiveness, because whether it's estrangement or grief, usually forgiveness has to come into place. So in the pre-birth agreement, he entrusted me with his life for those 18 years that he was here. And it was my privilege to get to be his mother for that period of time, and I learned so many valuable things just from his birth, because he was the firstborn. So we learned how not to be selfish. Okay, so that pre-birth agreement, and I think that much of the thing was that my son dealt with addiction, and I dealt with addiction. I'm 24 years clean in recovery, and why he didn't get to have years clean in recovery, I don't know. We don't get to decide that. Dr. Gabor Mate has some interesting videos on addiction and intergenerational trauma, if you're interested in those. So he's a very well-known, doctor. So, but the thing is that it breaks cycles, is what we're doing. We're going to talk about breaking cycles. So I want you just to have that in your thoughts. If you've lost somebody and how you lost them, and if you feel like you wanted to blame yourself, was it really something valid for you to blame yourself for? Because I can tell you in my addiction that I made amends to my son, and I said to my son, about my drinking, using, and because he was 4 years old when I quit. And he said, Mom, I don't remember any of that. So he didn't remember any of that. So, is it genetic or societal? I don't know, because it takes a long time for me to outgrow those things, those survival skills that I had, which are the breaking of the cycles, of the growing up in that kind of environment, the alcoholic, codependent environment. So it's about breaking those cycles. So that's going to be one. And then when we go into intergenerational trauma and estrangement, I never estranged myself from my parents when I was growing up, but my parents estranged me from my grandparents. They both got twisted at their parents, and so we were estranged from our grandparents at one period of time. So this stuff happens. The thing was that for whatever reasons, and they were able to come back together. A lot of times we want to make judgments on ourselves and others when there is this estrangement, and there's certainly some cause for reflection, because was I the perfect? I'm going through an estrangement right now with my beautiful daughter, and there is reasons, I owe my daughter an amends, and I'm working on that, and so, I'm not trying to put my stuff out there, but I'm talking about forgiveness is why I put that out there. So in this estrangement, I think what happens is when we estrange ourselves from people, when we go through this, and again, this is about breaking a cycle. Maybe if our kids have stood up to us and bucked us like I did my dad and has been done to me, then maybe when I bucked up to my dad, it turned physical. But when somebody bucks up to me, it doesn't turn physical. So that's what I mean by breaking a cycle, because I used to hear it told, and I still, still things, we did change things. It's about our evolution, and I used to say, well, my mom would never allow that, and my mom would never allow, some of the things that I allowed with my daughter, but we're all just trying to be better parents. But it doesn't mean that the parents we had were bad, because I love my mom dearly. But I too have healed from where I thought she wasn't what I wanted her to be, as we all do. That's where the estrangement comes in, right? Is when we have these things in our mind made up of how our parents or how our children are supposed to be. I know even before I was talking to a friend yesterday about our hypothetical children. And when I had, before I had children, I was the perfect parent. It was like, oh, when I have kids, they're going to do this, they're going to do this, they're going to do this. And then when I had kids, it's like, you're going to do what? Because we had to pick our battles with our children, And so then when our kids get grown and our parents want to be who they are, they're like, we're their hypothetical parents. We were like this all the time growing up, but we weren't that way. So then when they're grown and all the damage has been done, it's like, you're going to do what? When we decide we're going to do what we want to do. So the second part of this video is seeing a soul as they are and not who we want them to be, who we wanted them to be, and to be able to forgive. We forgive ourselves when we feel like we've let somebody down who was, part of our life, a part of our soul. When we lose them, whether it's a parent or a child, we grieve them. But the love doesn't have to die. And even in this new process, this new me that I'm rebirthing for myself now, is that I had to refill my grief again, because I started off where I left off 11 years ago, because I did things myself that, caused me not to build up this fantasy, because it's so traumatic. And trauma is a big deal. Intergenerational trauma, that's what we're talking about too. So trauma is a big deal. So while we're in estrangement, to be able to pray for somebody and let them be where they're at, and just be willing to see what part we could have played in it, and to own that part, to not negate how they're feeling, if we're on that level, to be able to forgive them. But if we can't talk to them, if it's never going to be something we can talk to them about, because I don't know what people's situations are out there, if you can or cannot heal. Brothers and sisters, like about parents leaving, and a lot of times, again, it's the grief process. It's grief and it's intergenerational trauma all mixed up in one. And this is why people have problems healing, right? So if we're seeking healing, we're going to find it. But if we're not seeking it, we're not going to find it. Hence, we're still going to just keep that cycle going. We're going to keep on trying to see people different than who they are. You know, I understand it's hard when we get grown and our parents aren't who we thought they were going to be, you know, and they do their own thing and we're like, what the hell do you think you're doing, you know? But they are souls. So seeing a soul as they really are, and not who we wish them to be, because when we understand that we aren't really the souls that we want to see either, that we all have capacity to grow and break these cycles, that because we bucked up to our parents when our kids buck up to us and it was not good, we don't have to do that. We can change and break these cycles. So I hope that this video has been helpful. If you remember anything, you know, pre-birth agreements is being able to establish that we were gifted these lives, these children, and there's God's business, my business, and somebody else's business. So in the loss of my child, as part of that was his business and God's business when the time came for him to choose whether to stay or to go, you know. And I don't know, sometimes maybe people don't have that choice, you know, to stay or go, because there's so many different kinds of grief. But if we think that we signed up for this and life is unfolding as it should, then it's going to give us a lot more empowerment to heal and understand what we can understand and let to go. I've got let it be, as I've said, tattooed on my hip as part of my grief. Sometimes we're not going to understand, but we have to rebuild ourselves. And maybe 10 years later, we're going to have to get down the road and have to rebuild ourselves again. But what else would we be doing? Okay, so it always calls for going within. So I hope that this video has been helpful. Again, I have videos on treating adults like children, and I have videos on grief, if any of those might help you. And I went a little over the 10 minutes I planned to go, but I hope you followed anyway. Thank you so much. I wish you much peace and love. And if you need to reach out to me, you can reach out to me at stacyreinick@gmail.com. If you have any ideas for future topics or any comments on this, I appreciate you very much. Thank you.